You're listening to the We Are Libertarians podcast network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
All right, let's get back to some boring subjects.
Understand the risk to our country.
Freedom brings people together.
You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Learn more at wearelibertarians.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Chris Spangle Show. It's so nice to have you. This is a conversation with my buddy Tricia Stuart-Mann of the Gingerarchy podcast. Check it out, and thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you follow her at Gingerarchy on every social media platform. How are you, Tricia?
I have a baby here that's semi-sleeping, so we might get baby cries. And that's fine.
So tell us about motherhood. How's motherhood?
It's difficult, being 29 and all. And I have a 16 and a 13-year-old that still require much of my attention, and a newborn baby. So that's kind of a weird mix. So that's fun. Neat.
Yeah. You have quite the range. So how old's your oldest again?
Yeah. My oldest is 16 and a half. She'll be 17 in June.
Okay, so you had children at like what? 11?
Like 10,
You're
basically.
Right.
Yeah, like 11, 12. I actually did have her fairly young, but I wasn't 10. So it's strange. Like, I'm trying to teach them how to babysit. It's really weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they good at it?
I don't know. No, not really.
Why? Just on their phone too much? They just don't know
anything about it, which I think is funny because I think it might be a generational thing. Like, I was babysitting at 12, like in my church and stuff like that, and nobody does that anymore. Kids don't have part-time jobs. Like, my daughter got a job, and it's really weird. She's the only 16-year-old there. Just kids don't do what they did like 10, 20 years ago. It's weird.
Yeah, I've noticed that like kids don't want to drive either. They're kind of like, what good is Gen Z?
I've noticed that too. I think that I don't know. I think that they want to stay forever children. It's weird, which I always wanted to get out of the house. Like, that was my big focus.
Right.
I don't understand that.
So what a heck of a week. Are you regretting bringing a child into the world?
I thought about that. My husband and I have talked about that a lot because holy shit, 2021 is ass balls crazy.
Right.
It's ass balls crazy. Yeah.
So like, where do you come down on it? Obviously you're glad to have a kid, I'm sure, but.
Yes. But if you look back throughout history, and if you're a student of history, you'll realize that there's crazier and worse times than this. So what a time to be alive is kind of, you can take that whatever way you want to. This week was especially troubling, though. It troubled me more so, not for having a child that I brought into this world, but for the people that I associate with. I was really disappointed in them.
Why?
They all kind of gave into this power structure that we've been fighting against. And it really bothered me. I saw a lot of people celebrating these idiots storming the Capitol and trying to support a president. And they were saying it's not about that. It was totally about that. You don't storm a Capitol with a guy's name on a flag and don't acknowledge the guy with the name on the flag. Like, I don't understand people that think it's about something else. I think maybe they want it to be about something else, but it's not. It's a bunch of idiots celebrating an authoritarian. And it's, as an anarchist, like, that's the last thing I ever want to do. I don't get it. It's completely lost to me.
I look at it and I go, well, okay, if those people succeed in keeping Trump in power, do you think that the system stays the same as it was the last 4 years? And do you think that those people will be more peaceful? Will they be agorists? I don't think so.
No, because I will say that the few like anarchists and agorists that I know that are like principled will have nothing to do with this. Like they're like, yeah, have fun. I don't care. So,
you know what's really funny, and it sort of speaks to this, because the people that you're kind of talking about, so when I came into the libertarian movement in 2007, and I've always been more of a, the argument was never left or right.
You're a mini statist, Chris. It's
yes.
fine.
No,
Okay.
Just King Blue Pill over here. And so I was... I was thinking the other day, I never really heard people talk about left or right libertarianism ever until around 2018 when, certain people brought in this demagoguery and Trumpist-style politics into the party, and I was like, this is going to be a big problem. It's going to completely break up the libertarian movement, and here we are. And because
libertarianism should be the opposite of left and right. It should be a third eye. You know what I mean? It should be completely different. Yeah.
Yeah,
to break it into those categories is bad.
Right.
Bad.
So the movement had been ingrained with the Nolan chart, which was north and south and east and west, and like the arguments amongst libertarians in 2008 were, I'm not going to support this candidate because they want to abolish all government, versus I'm not going to support this candidate because they want barely a constitutional republic. Like, so the idea of what government was, very, 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 very minimal. I just, I'm surprised at how we've kind of fallen out of the Nolan chart of statist versus maximal freedom, and the people that you're talking about, like, those were the pragmatics enemy back in the day. And I look at like Daryl Perry and I'm like, God, I miss the days when like Daryl Perry and Lee Wrights were the biggest problem, because we've got so many people now that seem to be so hungry for violence, and like it just is the opposite. And I'm sort of not surprised to hear that like those folks are not involved and not wanting anything to do with this, because they're all kind of hippies a little bit.
It's kind of funny because obviously libertarianism at its core, and if you look back to the original philosophy, and we could probably talk to Dennis about, where libertarianism started, but it was being against the initiation of violence. And that seems to be where we're having an issue now with these people. And it's like, I don't really understand why you think that violence is okay. And certainly as an ANCAP, obviously if the government aggresses against me, I think I have every right to act against them with violence. But they're just talking really vague, weird terms, and it seems kind of like the opposite of libertarian philosophy. And I just feel like these people really aren't rooted in the philosophy. They maybe came over as statists and never really kind of understood the philosophy. They just were here because they thought maybe it was cool or different. I don't know.
A lot of new libertarians.
I don't think they're really principled.
A lot of new,
they're not really principled.
No, and I don't think you can expect, like, I'll never forget Mary Ruwart. If you've never read Mary Ruwart's book,
I have not, but
it's
I know
so good.
We were talking about it in the chat today.
Healing Our World.
Oh, I wish I was.
And she talks a lot, and like I remember at an LNC meeting in like 2009 or 10, her kind of looking at me and saying, well, I've been on the Liberty train a lot longer, and I'm a few stops ahead of you, and when you kind of get to this station, you'll look back and you'll go, yep, she was right. And now I'm like past the station she was at even then, and now she's even further into Liberty Yoda land. But like, you know, I look at a lot of these younger people who have this unawareness of anything that happened in the libertarian movement, the Libertarian Party, the libertarian philosophy pre-2008, and they're missing a lot of really good stuff. And then when you try to bring it up, it's very hostile. It's
that's the thing. And I can say as an anarchist now, because I've kind of left like worrying about what statists think about me. But as far as Ron Paul goes, I think number one, he was a tremendous benefit to the liberty movement. Definitely. And he was a pretty principled guy, even though he ran for office. But what happened out of that is that people came over from a statist side and they never really left it. They just kept dipping their toes. And so now most of them haven't found their footing. I do know some anarchists that have and kind of left that, and they don't worship the guy. They appreciate what he did, but he was just a stepping stone. For other people, they can't let go of it's just really weird. It was like that he was their first love, and they can't ever love anyone else. And see, I love anarchy now, and that has nothing to do with Ron Paul. And honestly, I never even knew who Ron Paul was.
Because you were a giant Republican, were you not?
I was a huge Republican. I was a delegate. I was a super conservative. Like Rush Limbaugh was my hero. So Ron Paul meant nothing to me, and I remember thinking about Paul bots a little bit and how weird they were. But I do appreciate the guy. I mean, he has I hate to tear him down because I really don't think it's his fault. I think it's the people that have put him on a pedestal's fault.
I don't know why we always feel like we have to kiss his ass. Like, I'm so tired of kissing the ass of these people. Like,
I don't understand. And he's not that type of guy. Like, he's a pretty humble guy. I don't think he really cares about people kissing his ass. So what are you doing it for? I don't understand.
Right.
Is it some rite of passage, or I don't know. I know that I've gotten past that. And I never worshipped the guy. I do appreciate him. I think he was, a really great tool in the movement. But I'm an anarchist because of what I've read and my principles and my life experience. It doesn't have a lot to do with a politician that was ran for president in the Republican Party. That's not where the foundation of my principles lie. It's weird to me. It's strange.
So we are able to take your comments and questions, too. So if you want to leave us a comment, we're talking about this week and censorship, and we're going to talk about the storming of the Capitol. We got our first comment here. Let's take a listen.
Yeah, and regarding Ron Paul, I agree 100%. But people should also listen to Noam Chomsky, though. Definitely.
Oh, I love Noam.
You love Noam Chomsky?
I love Noam Chomsky. Yeah, I'm a true anarchist. I've kind of gone down to where I don't, although I would kind of classify myself as an anarcho-capitalist, which I am. But I just think he's a classical anarchist, and I love and appreciate what he says. And some people say he's left, and there's definitely some things that are leftist about him. But love Noam Chomsky. The cool thing about being an anarchist is that I can objectively look at statists and pick and choose what I enjoy about them and leave the rest behind.
Yeah, I interviewed Noam Chomsky in 2013. It's in the Wall Plus
How did
feed.
I not know that, Chris? What the hell?
I've interviewed all kinds of fancy people.
Okay, so now you've got like you're just my friend, but you've also just gained a bunch of cool points. So
he was so. I have his phone number. Do you want his phone number?
What? Yeah. Oh my god! What the hell? Are you serious?
I'm dead serious. Yeah.
Please, send me that episode too.
His office phone number. He was so nice. He was very humble, and he. Oh yeah, sure. I mean, he sounded like 900 years old at that point.
Well, he is.
He is, yeah. And then now I see him on Democracy Now, and he's like, I don't know it. But no, Noam Chomsky and I think partially why I was talking to somebody today about why they're very triggered or very sensitive about certain things that are happening with the conservative movement right now, and it's because they were a part of it. And I think part of my sensitivity to it is that I was a young conservative in the early 2000s who got completely fooled by propaganda, and now I see Republicans doing that to well-meaning people again, and it infuriates me watching people be propagandized. And Noam Chomsky has written some of the best books about propaganda and how people are sold in the modern media age and by politicians on certain things. And when I look at what happened at the Capitol, we did an episode of the Chris Spangle show today where we talked to two people who were there, and both of them said there just wasn't a person that didn't think that this was stolen from him. You know, the Trump media ecosystem has turned the left into like part Thanos, part the Borg, part God. Like they have infinite powers. They can kill people at will. They can steal elections without it being traced. Like they are every bit, if not more powerful than the cabal and the blacklist. And it is, and then on top of that, this incredibly evil, powerful machine is going to line you up, shoot you if you don't kneel, and say that black people are superior. I mean, I don't think people really totally understand how afraid of, quote, the left people in this movement are and how propagandized they've been by it over 5 years.
Christopher, that's what statism does. It makes people very afraid. It gives you the worst boogeyman you could ever imagine. It plays on your worst fears. And so that is what I would say that the left and the right in the media do. They play on people's worst fears. So you take normal people that are just working their everyday jobs and you make them think that somebody is out to get them. And it's not to say that there's not some truth to that. So you take this little bit of truth and then you magnify it to some sort of like boogeyman. And it becomes ridiculous. I don't understand. And that's what I love about anarchism is because I don't have to be a part of that. I jokingly say I don't have a president. And it's not because, this person said bad words or this person tweeted something, whatever. It's the fact that I lead myself. I own my own life. This person that lives far away from me does not have that much control. They can't murder me. I mean, technically they could, but, and I think these people let politicians have so much control over their lives. They're so scared of them. And it's just like, just stop. It doesn't mean anything. They want it to mean something. Let them go. They're not part of your life. Like, I'm just not going to let them be part of my life, and I don't fucking care about them.
I think people really, because people have no understanding of how their government works at all, because they've never volunteered for a campaign, they've never
that's true.
run
Most
for
people
office.
think that we have a federalist government. Most people think that
people are obsessed with the federal elections, and the reality is, if you go and work in politics, you will have a much different view of the people that work in politics and politicians and how government works. And it becomes Veep instead of House of Cards. It becomes, know, Parks and Rec as opposed to the blacklist. Like, because humans are fallible, fallen creatures that are largely incompetent, and the government is largely incompetent. And to assign all of this nefariousness to fallen creatures who can't, I mean, everywhere there's a camera now. I mean, so if you're going to steal an election and shift 8 million votes in multiple states, you'd have to have like a Christ-like understanding of the future and know where to put those ballots undetected. I mean, it strains credulity. And I had one of my high school friends, one of my best friends in my wedding, text me, hey, Trump is speaking at 7 p.m. tonight. It's all going down. They've got 195,000 warrants for arrest. This is Trump is going to cut off all electricity. He's going to cut off the national communications. He's going to declare the left an imminent threat. And I was sitting with someone and they go, yeah, I've heard that 3 times from this group of people. So
yeah, also that's not how our government is set up.
They don't have the ability. Like, the government is so weak and ineffectual that 5,000 people can just stroll into the most secure building on the planet after the White House and Pentagon. Like, what do you think that the real true nature of this government is? It's very weak, and that is because it is so decentralized. And so many of the arguments that are made so often in populist libertarianism totally undercut the value of our arguments, in that a decentralized government is a weak government. It isn't powerful. And the proof is that Tricia and I are here on a free and open platform talking about how much the government sucks.
Yeah.
And then the counter to that, though, is, well, they just removed Parler. They just removed Trump. They've removed Alex Jones. They're censoring. Why don't you buy that? And I go, I agree with you. I was against that from the beginning. They never should have gotten into censoring political speech, but...
No, yeah.
At the end of the day, I kind of get them not wanting to, have people plotting terrorist attacks on their, I don't want you doing that in my house. Why? It's their property. But
well, I also think like the algorithms and like the bots don't understand what's good or bad, so they're just taking stuff off that's not one thing or the other.
Yeah, right. Like I said this on the big show today on the Chris Spangle show. John Hudak, Joshua Smith, Dan Smotes, Liberty Memes, these are libertarians that have been deleted and had their whole business pages. Patreon member Tom Modica had his business pages and his personal pages removed. And like Tom, John, Joshua, these are not domestic terrorists. These are just dudes who post memes about the government and like... They're not even well, I don't know. Dan is conspiratorial.
Well,
but,
yeah.
No, but and he's harmless. He's just giving information that he finds to be valuable, and you can listen to it or not listen to it. It's your choice. Like there was no reason for those guys to have their accounts permanently banned. They're taking a hammer to this when they really needed a scalpel, and they're not doing it correctly. They don't really care. But it's not just the right too. Like in the Pat Down group, we had 20, 30 different posts deleted against community guidelines yesterday in the Pat Down group, and like that is full of Democrats. So
definitely. During the 2018 purge, like a lot of people thought it was just alternative media, and it was, but there was actually leftist alternative media that was taken down. It's anybody that's outside of their range, because like I said, like I don't think those algorithms account for like. There's not a person thinking, oh, is this, a racist post or is this whatever? And honestly, in my opinion, I think you should just let everything fly and let the chips fall where they may. But I don't know.
Yeah, like the problem is that going back to the fear that we talked about, when you start removing Parler, removing Trump, people don't take that as Donald Trump. Like, listen, Donald Trump is banned because of Donald Trump. It's not like they gave him more warnings than they've given Tricia and I in our bans. Like, he's an adult.
No, I know people that have had perma bans that have done literally nothing wrong, and he literally incited insurrection.
Like he's made his bed. He can lie in it. I don't feel sorry for him, but when you do that. The average person who was on the Capitol steps plotting sedition, and literally one of the guys said today, guys were saying, hold on, I've got explosives in my car. Don't rush the Capitol. Let me go get them. And they both said, both of the people that were there, like one guy was like, I didn't realize how I was this out of touch with these people. I didn't realize how angry and afraid they are. And there's going to be serious violence on Inauguration Day because of it. And
I think that's the next thing, and I worry about that.
Like, and so when you delete him off of there, or you remove Parler, and you're just in one fell swoop remove, like all you did was just like people were starting to turn on him. And local Republicans were finally saying enough, and then they did this, and the conversation changed, and it galvanized him again, and now they're all signing up for Parler, and it built solidarity with him, and the news cycle is completely turned.
Christopher, let's just talk about something. Let's talk about somebody that you know really well.
Okay.
His name is Mike Pence. Right. And you delivered him to us from Indiana.
Yes, personally.
So, I want everybody listening to blame Chris Spangle for Mike Pence. Please do.
Please. I'd love
to. So what do you, on that day, it's very questionable, like his behavior and Trump's behavior. Do you think Mike Pence hates him and they're like completely, like, I just want to know the soap opera drama.
So
seriously.
I can tell you what I know from the Indiana political gossip and from reading Tom LoBianco's great book, Piety and Power, on Mike Pence, talking to Tom off air, and then we did an interview with him. And if you want to hear more about Mike Pence, this interview is great. It's in the Chris Spangle Show feed. Mike Pence is a person that says what he believes. He doesn't lie. He just spins like crazy, and he's like fudging, but like he's not going to say something that he generally doesn't believe, and isn't going to participate in something he doesn't truly like. He'll kind of compromise and go along, but that's why you saw him never, not once, after the election did you see him say anything remotely tiptoeing to the line of stop the steal. He just never got there. Yeah. He never did it. He didn't believe it, and he wasn't going to part of it. Yeah, he wasn't going to participate in it. And Mike Pence has spent literally his entire life since college running for president. Every single thing he has ever done has been to run for president, and I mean that so seriously.
He's such a boring person.
But that's part of it, is that in that political era, he felt you needed to be boring. He is a machine. Like when I ran a state gubernatorial campaign against him, I've never seen anybody more disciplined. He never answered one question. He stuck to his script. He was just, you ask him about this. You saw it in the debates. Like what you saw in the debates was what drove the Indiana press corps crazy, is you'd go, he was
good. I mean, I disagree with him. I think he's an idiot statist.
What do you think about ethanol? Well, I just want to say Kamala Harris's record on abortion is terrible. And everybody here says the Mike Pence that was on the radio, which he was a radio talk show host at the cluster that I work at and at another one. And literally all of the audio of him being on air basically has been destroyed. But people who said, I worked with him in his 80s and 90s campaigns, and he's a totally different guy. Like he is a much different, less fun person, according to everybody around here, who takes way less chances. Like his first congressional run was super, super like dirty, and he made up all this stuff about this guy, and then he regretted it, and he was just like, it wasn't, he trolled, like he had this famous ad where he like dressed up a guy like an Iranian oil magnate and pretended that he was buying off the Democratic opponent, and he said he regretted that forever and he wasn't going to do it again, and he never did. He's just very disciplined and has a singular goal. My ex-wife had his wife as a 3rd grade or 6th grade teacher, 3rd grade, said she was the meanest teacher she ever had. And, Karen is as hardcore, we're going to be president, as Mike ever was. Like when he became governor, she had her own office over in the Capitol, which is not normally done. And Mike would call her on the phone every day, and like Karen is his main advisor. And so when he left Congress and he was the number 3 person, he was running for governor to run for president. He was, and everybody here in 2012 knew it, and he would be asked it all the time. I'm here to serve the people of Indiana, and I just am so glad. And within 2 months, he put a field poll in Iowa out to see kind of where he stood. So he was like, a year or two in, his chief of staff quit to start a consulting agency and basically moved to Iowa full time. And he was running for president until RFRA, when he tried to introduce this Religious Freedom Act. And that killed his chances of really winning governor. Like if that race had gone on in 2012, he would have lost.
I'm unfamiliar with that. What was the Religious Freedom Act?
Okay, so Mike Pence had several errors. So he ran a very like bland campaign in 2012 against a very fun guy.
Bland. Like if you looked up bland, Merriam-Webster,
yes,
that's his face would be there.
Right.
Yeah.
And so he was running against Rupert from Survivor, who was our candidate. And then he was running against John Gregg, who was the super funny, like conservative, pro-life Democrat from Southern Indiana that everybody loved. And he almost lost that 2012 race. And so, but he did in that campaign, he did not mention social issues, abortion, none of it. Right. So he, when he got into office, you have to realize he's coming off of the governorship of Mitch Daniels, who's now changing colleges permanently by being the president of Purdue. Like, Mitch Daniels was chief of staff of Dick Lugar, one of the best senators in Indiana history. When Dick Lugar was mayor in the late 60s, like, Mitch Daniels was like 25 and his chief of staff because he was such a brilliant guy. He ran Lilly, he ran the Office of Management and Budget for George Bush, worked for Reagan. One of the most likable people, you know, would have a weekly conversation with the press, super open. Like, Mitch Daniels told everybody his 8 years, zero social issues, don't even bring up abortion or gay marriage. So when Pence gets in, he owes that whole community who basically, like, gave him all kinds of money. If you've seen The Family on Netflix, like, they funded Mike Pence all the time. And so they needed an attaboy. And so going around the country was this Religious Freedom Restoration Act. And it basically said that, protected the religious freedom of churches and businesses. And it was kind of off the heels of the North Carolina trans bathroom stuff. And so so they basically, like, passed this bill, and it was super controversial. I would totally there's one piece of it where it was, like, super offensive to some group, and I forget which group, but it was the one thing that Mike Pence shouldn't have ever done, because everybody just went, oh yeah, you're just basically a Christian Ayatollah. We told you so. You're the worst. And it basically killed his chances of winning his next race, because, remember, he wasn't going to win his first one. He squeaked it out. 2 more weeks, he would have lost. So now he's governor, facing a loss in his race, and Donald Trump starts coming to town, and Javanka really likes Mike Pence because Javanka and Chris Christie kind of go, well, listen, you need help with the evangelicals. Mike Pence was third in the House. He's super well connected. He's going to appeal to the base. And then Newt is out there. So it comes down to Newt. And so Trump flies in one day in the middle of the VP selection to give a speech here in Indianapolis. A flat tire takes place on the plane, and so Trump is stuck here for the night. So Pence has him over to the governor's residence. He goes to the Conrad. They're talking. Newt gets wind of this. Gingrich flies in. Former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, flies into Indianapolis. All the politicos in Indiana are texting each other. Newt's running around the Conrad looking frantically for Pence, and he knows that Trump is at the Conrad, but he can't find him. Newt never gets in touch with him. Mike Pence looks at, like, basically has, like, Mike Pence is mostly a coward. Like, he is exactly who you want Mike Pence to be, to get your vote, your money, your power, whatever. Like, Mike Pence is really just a cowardly person, and will tell anybody what they want to hear. This is what Trump had kind of heard, because it is true about Mike Pence. And he basically, at one point in the interview, just kind of says, I'm not going to do that, Mr. President. I just really need you to do this. I just wouldn't do that. I'm sorry. Like, it basically, like, kind of puts Trump in his place. And Trump, like, looks at Javanka and goes, Jared and Ivanka Trump, I like him. He's got guts, like me. And he ends up picking Mike Pence. He never calls Gingrich to tell him. Chris Christie was also in the running. He never tells Christie. They basically find out in a tweet that Mike's the guy. And Pence becomes now.
Oh, and Krispy Kreme has spent the rest of his career trying to discredit Trump.
And so Pence, why did Pence do it? Because Pence is Mr. Jesus, right? Pence did it because of his ambition. And LoBianco in the interview basically said to me, who's covered Pence forever from here in Indiana all the way to D.C., goes, his ambition was bigger than his religion. He cares more about his ambition than he cares about Jesus. I'm like, damn. And it's sort of true. Like, how do you profess the faith that you have and then go work with and for Donald Trump? And when the Hollywood Access tape came about, like, Karen wanted him to quit. He was ready to quit. They were furious. He smoothed it over with that video that Trump put out right before the debate or whatever, and him is his office going, I'm sorry, it was a mistake. That was strictly to keep Pence from working with Reince Priebus to kick him off the ticket. And so Pence didn't expect him to win. No one expected him to win. They're on election night in New York City. North Carolina gets called. Everybody realizes Trump's going to win. Mike's face goes white, and this is not just in LoBianco's book, but I've heard it true before.
Donald Trump didn't expect to win.
Yeah, nobody expected him to win. And so Pence is now vice president. Karen looks at him furious. Are you happy now, Mike? You got what you wanted, and storms out. She was pissed. And they have had a tense relationship ever since. He's never really trusted Pence, and he knows that Pence is not totally on his side. But Pence was like the guy that anybody that likes any legislation that Donald Trump got done, they can thank Mike Pence, Mitch McConnell, and Paul Ryan, and to some extent James Mattis. And so, you know, all the non-interventionist talk, like General Milley, General Mattis, John Kelly, like all these generals that have kind of retired have all said, we kept Trump from nuking Iran. Like he was ready to go to war in multiple places all the time. We just kept him in check because he's a big baby. So he thought about
frightening.
Yeah.
That's legit scary.
What you have seen from Donald Trump in the last 5 to 6 months is Donald Trump. And so what you are seeing now, naked, just raw vengeance, anger, you know, can't get past his own criticism. What you're seeing now is Donald Trump. That is what is in all these books. You read any of the books like by Bolton or the Michael Wolff book or any of these like tell-all books, behind the scenes, former staffer books, this is Donald Trump. They all describe the same person. Like the New York Times and Maggie Haberman have written that this is the guy. This is just him. But all those swamp people like Mike Pence, who had been there for 30 years at that point, kept Donald Trump in check, and they got him tax cuts, and they got him, you know, this non-interventionist foreign policy to some respect. Like when Trump is left to his own devices, you get insurrection, people invading the Capitol because of conspiracy theories. Like he is Alex Jones. He's as out of control and as insane as Alex Jones, you know, and people just don't want to admit it, because if they admit it, then they have to like look at their other buddies who are in their social group and go, I'm sorry, I just can't go along with this. And that's too hard for some people.
I made a funny post
when
saying that, you know, I don't know when, that the you know, season finale of The Celebrity Apprentice was really lit or whatever. But there's a lot of truth to that. So if you study like the character of Donald Trump, and I know that, you know, Penn Jillette has some skin in the game, and he's considered a libertarian. And but I remember listening to an interview of him a long time ago about when he was on The Celebrity Apprentice and talking about Donald Trump, the cult of his personality, and it actually matches a lot of what you say, because he is somebody that is obsessed with winning, to the fact where he will just let go of every bit of sanity and anything else just to win. And I think that's kind of, he's not sane. He's not a sane
only
person.
People who don't know exactly who and what Donald Trump is are his supporters, because they don't read anything other than what he wants them to read.
Well, they also project their beliefs onto him.
Right.
And I've said this, you know, like feeling ostracized. I think there's a large portion of the country that feels ostracized and feels ineffective and feels like, you know, no matter what they do, they don't matter. And so they're going to project onto Donald Trump what they see. So they see a hero in him.
Right.
But it doesn't matter. He's not. Obviously, he's not even smart. Well, I mean, in certain ways he is. But
he's president, so he's smart in something.
Yeah. Well, people did that to Barack Obama, who I believe is a little bit more intelligent than Donald Trump. But they projected their values onto him and their beliefs and their hopes, you know, onto somebody. And
it's very religious. It's very religious.
Yeah. Oh, it is. He's, you know, I mean, you see some of this symbolism. It's weird, like kneeling to a cross with a Trump flag. That's
idolatry,
really fucked up.
Christian nationalism. Yeah.
So people really do look at him like some kind of idol, like some Christian idol, which is weird because he's like the opposite of that. But
I guess to close it out on Pence, I wasn't surprised that he did what he did, which was stab Trump in the back. But like Pence,
I wasn't surprised either.
Yeah, Pence is a shrewd politician who is not an idiot, who is not a traitor in like the Trump sense, like Josh Hawley sense. Like Trump really does have Pence really does believe in all of the, the best of America and we're the greatest country and we're the flag. Like he believes and buys all of that totally. The guy wrote the Patriot Act and named it the Patriot Act. He's all in on all that stuff. And, there's a point now where Trump is a threat to the Republic and to the Constitution. And Pence was always going to side with that and was always going to make the decision that he was going to make for the rule of law. Because at his heart, Mike Pence is not anti-rule of law. He is not a fascist. He is not. He's just a follower. No, and it led him to
there was never a doubt
places.
In my mind that he would certify the election. There was never a doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's not a Trump loyalist. None of the early people were Trump loyalists. They were there because the Trump people didn't know what they were doing. They were picked. Christie started the transition, and then Jared Kushner fired him because Christie put his dad in jail, who's now been pardoned by Trump. And they put Pence in charge of the transition, and Pence just hired a bunch of Bush people. So, it was never a surprise to me that he was going to do it because everybody here was not surprised. And then when they the day after they banned his chief of staff and everybody quit, and then Pence starts leaking to Jim Acosta at CNN, Trump's mortal enemy. It was game on, bitch. And so now you've got this super well-connected, shrewd politician he's going to leak all of the worst parts of Donald Trump to the media to kill whatever chances he has in 2024, which at this point are non-existent. I mean, there's no way the guy's going to be president in 4 years.
You know what, Chris? I disagree.
Yeah, no, it's just not going to happen. I mean, there's no way.
No, people are that insane. Mark my words right now on December 40th of 2020.
So let's go through some of these questions and comments. We got a bunch stacking up here.
Absolutely.
All right, hold on.
What do you, as an anarchist and a libertarian, feel about opportunists?
Well,
Tricia?
Opportunists could be anything. So, I mean, if they're an opportunist that doesn't initiate violence, you go for it.
Yeah,
do what you can do.
In a libertarian society is going to have grifters. I mean, listen, we have a lot of government now and a lot of laws, and it doesn't protect you from grifters. One's in charge of the law. So, the whole point of the constitutional republic, which Trish hates, but I like more.
Hey.
And
no, I don't think it's the worst. I'm just saying, I would prefer that to what we have now, but it's never going to happen. And also, I just don't respect it. So
yeah. So, okay, but cool. We can agree on the rule of law, because even if the rule of law is agreed to voluntarily and you sign a contract,
right.
But the fundamental premise of government in a libertarian society is that it's ruled by law. So it's not ruled by a mob. It's not ruled by one single person, a king or a strongman. It's ruled by the law, and that is developed out of England and France and the what's called the divine right of kings. And basically, the kings said, "I can do whatever I want to anybody I want and to whatever I want to do to their property." And so then the nobles all said, "Oh yeah, well here's Magna Carta, bitch." And then that developed this long train towards the rule of law, which said government exists only to constrain and keep at bay the worst people in society, especially the ambitious who want to take over power and use the force of government against other people. And so the natural rights tradition, as it is called, puts law in a supreme place, because we want the law to lock up murderers, lock up child molesters, lock up people who hurt others.
I would go a little farther. The American system did something a little bit different than that. It actually, which as an anarchist, I don't think is the end all game.
You don't need the qualifiers. Go ahead, love the Constitution.
Okay, I'm just saying, I don't want to get called out. But it actually was basically that the government was there to ensure people's natural rights. So it was actually there to protect the individual.
And natural rights mean what?
Idea.
Yeah, tell people what.
So it's not anything that you're guaranteed, but it's something that you're guaranteed to be defended against. So. So positive rights and negative rights. So you have the right to live. You have the right to pursue happiness or property. You have the right to say what you want to say as long as you're not inciting violence against somebody else. So government is there to protect those rights. That was a really crazy idea at the time. So it was very
it was revolutionary.
The American style of government was revolutionary. Now, obviously, I have issues with that because I've grown from there, but I do think that's different than a lot of the other governments that were instituted throughout history. So
no, it was
it's a cool idea. It's a cool idea. It can't happen.
And the whole idea was basically to set a set of rights that would decentralize power, so you'd have rights protected at the federal, state, and local levels. So, for instance, what you see in the 60s when, local and state governments are oppressing black people, you can appeal to the Attorney General, Robert Kennedy, and use the federal government to balance it out and bring liberty to, the right to vote, which is the right to a fair trial.
Right.
Because it wasn't just about the right to vote. The Voting Rights Act was about the fact that if you wanted to vote in the South, from basically, Reconstruction, the end of Reconstruction, to the introduction of Jim Crow, to the Civil Rights era and the Voting Rights Act, you didn't have a single black person registered in most of these southern states. And that's because when they would go in to register to vote, it was legal for them to register to vote, but when they showed up, they faced a series of hurdles. So you either had to have someone in the community of standing to vouch for you. Well, who's going to do that when there's the segregationists and the Klan roaming around ready to beat the crap out of you? Or you had to recite an entire paragraph of the state constitution, and if you managed to do that right, then you had to guess how many beans were in a jar. And if you got that right, then you had to name the presidents in backwards order. It was a series of hoops, and so none were registered until the Civil Rights Act. Now, so just one final point here.
To inherent racism, that's inherent
systemic racism, exactly.
Yeah, systemic
and
inherent racism. It's not oblivious, obvious. I don't like black people. It's called, how am I going to get them not to do something that they should be able to do? That's all it is. That
Constitution in Alabama was written in the early 1900s with white supremacy explicitly. The words white supremacy were written into that Constitution. That Constitution is still there today, even though those particular words have been taken out. And so people who had the intent of white supremacy in their state, that Constitution is still the framework of law, which is why the federal government still continues to this day to try and balance things out in various states in various different ways, not just in terms of racial justice. But so, for instance, when people couldn't register to vote, then they couldn't vote, then they couldn't be picked to serve on juries. So black men would be tried for looking or talking to a white woman. In the case of Emmett Till, who was killed for just talking to a white woman, they wouldn't face a jury of their peers. They'd face a jury of white men who hated black men, and it was totally and wholly unjust and corrupt. Well, Alabama wasn't going to reform its own laws until somebody came along and put pressure. And so that's why you need the natural rights tradition and the system of negative rights at various levels to help balance that out. So now, obviously, the fatal flaw is that slavery existed, and that didn't exist in the beginning, but it set up a system that eventually eradicated
never permitted it. The Constitution never permitted slavery. People did.
Right.
That's another thing, and I'm not, a huge fan of the Constitution, but it's back then, natural rights, that was a really cool new idea. And as far as like writing it into like a constitution or a declaration, but it's not that those things, you know, guaranteed slavery. It's that the people didn't respect the Constitution or the rule of law or the fact that people had the right to, you know, pursue happiness or whatever. Like, people will pervert any type of document that there is. Like, it doesn't really matter. So that's kind of where my anarchy comes in. It's like, you could write something down a million times, but if people don't respect you writing it down, it doesn't mean a damn thing, you know?
Yeah.
And so there's only I'm only about what's real and what's right, and that is myself and me not subjecting someone else to violence. So that's basically it. Like, I'm gonna live my life and not hurt anybody else, and that's anarchy, and that's a beautiful thing. I don't need a piece of paper to tell me to do that.
Next comment.
Hey, I was just listening to you guys talk, and to Gingerarchy's point, context does matter. If you're storming the Capitol with a MAGA Trump flag 2020 and it's about the election that was stolen from you because your man's not in the office, then yeah, that is context matters.
Yeah, I mean that is.
I would agree. Yeah, if somebody was storming it because they wanted to take back their, take back the Constitution from the government and their tax money that was stolen from them, you know, I might think differently on it. But
bro, if that was a coup for anarcho-capitalism, I would be all in. But that coup was not for anarcho-capitalism.
I definitely would, but it was not anything about that, and I can't stand when people are trying to make it about that. It's not at all. Those people wanted an authoritarian psychopath, and they got one. And
that was our buddy Fritz from the Fritz Cast. Make sure you check out his podcast.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's my problem with the but the left, which at this point is just basically the new Trump derangement syndrome. Like, okay, it's just the left. Like, roll your eyes at these people. Just the left. We got it. Right.
Yeah, I'm over that. I'm an anarchist. I don't give a shit about the right or the left.
I don't care what the left did. It doesn't justify your violence. But the equivalence, and this is something our friend Ryan Lindsay, flaming leftist, got on me about, because I firmly believe at this point the worst elements of MAGA are Antifa. Like, there is no difference between the dude that is in the black leather with the Harley patch beating up the dude with the red flag. Like, they're there for the same reasons.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
They're not really there for social justice or for their president. They're there because they want to beat the shit out of somebody. Now,
they're there because they're mad and they want to be important.
That's right. And so, you know, but he's like, listen, there's no equivalent between a group of people who are out in the streets protesting and violating people's property rights on behalf of more liberty, right? And so his point is, which I'm with you on the protesting, like the BLM protests are to increase liberty for Black Americans. And the protest...
The protest go in there and decide to destroy things. Yeah.
Right. Like, the protest for the for Trump is because his feelings are hurt. It's not the same thing.
Well, that's it. They're like, it's not about that. They're disenfranchised, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, they had a lot of fucking flags with Trump written on it. So if they're disenfranchised, maybe fly the American flag and talk about liberty, which, I mean, I don't give a shit about that. But, like, you invoked his name quite a bit. So I'm calling bullshit on that. It was all about a dude. Like, there's not that many people that care about liberty. They don't even know they're free.
Right.
They think they have a master.
Right.
Like, I'm free. I don't have a president. Haven't had one in a long time. Don't care to have one in the future. So, hey. But would I storm a government building with a guy's name on my flag? Fuck no. I don't care enough about him because I don't.
Yeah, it's really, really, really weird how many libertarians are pro-Trump. Like, I
don't know. I think they want to assign some type, like, they want to have some part in some insurrection that didn't really happen. Like, they want it to be more than it is, and it's not.
LARPing.
It's a bunch of status. Yeah, pretty much. But they hope so much for a revolution. It's kind of sad. But revolution doesn't happen like that, really.
Right.
It's more like, buy some Bitcoin and open a business. That's how revolution happens.
Next question.
No, and I hear what you're saying, but like my quote unquote most woke friends literally think that if you're censored or deleted, that your shit was full of lies because that's what the media tells you. So they don't understand the whole like YouTube angle, social media angle of like people being censored hardcore. I've been seeing this since like pre-Bernie shit 6 years ago. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy. They think it's just if it was deleted, it's because it was a lie. And it's like the fuck? Well, it used to be up, but it's not now. Damn. Like go on DuckDuckGo or somewhere else. But it is crazy, dude.
Yeah, what I've seen. Go ahead,
I
Tricia.
get what she's saying. No, seriously. It just because it's deleted, there could be a lot of truth to it. In fact, I had a lot of friends that run alternative media sites that really fact check a lot of their stuff and have really great reporters that were deleted in 2018 from most major social media sites. So I get it. No, she's right in that. It's not one thing or the other.
Yeah, the other thing that I think that is missed in this is that these sites do not want politics anymore on their platform. They want it gone. Let's get back to the dog photos. That's, but
that's never going to happen.
No, never. No. All right, next. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with her. I think that people, listen, you have to it's not just enough to check Twitter every day for information because those people are siloing you in all the information you want to see. And it's not enough to just you can get the alternative news now basically on your Twitter and Facebook and social media. And then then there's other news that you can get in a different reality on the right wing, conservative sites like National Review, and then there's a different reality on the MAGA sites, and then there's a different reality over at Vox, and then there's 4chan, and it's a never-ending thing, and so you just kind of have to do what you can do, but you
could just subscribe to Wall and get really good information.
That's right. Go to wearelibertarians.com, download all of the podcasts at wearelibertarians.com. Next comment.
It's fair and balanced.
Fair and imbalanced.
Okay. I know. Are we having music, Christopher?
All right.
What's happening? Is there a Christmas carol? What's happening?
Part of history do you relate to? Is it past, present, or future?
What part of history do you relate to, Tricia?
Well, I have to say, I think about the future a lot. I'm an optimist, so I suppose I think about that. I think it's really important to remember history. But I do look forward to a time when we have the option to live in a society ruled by a government, or we have the option to live in a voluntary society. I choose to be an optimist, so I live in the future.
I live in the 1910s, 20s, and somewhat 30s.
Oh, God, it happened.
That is my favorite
I'm
period.
Old and white.
No, I think because there is something about the 10s, the 10s and the 20s specifically, that are so parallel to today. You've got the 20s Klan, which here in Indiana, the 20s Ku Klux Klan was a third of the state. And it wasn't aimed at African Americans. It was aimed at the Catholics. And the reason was that they were the ones who were stealing their jobs, the Catholic immigrants. And so, there's that part, and then there's the development of socialism, and you also had a lot of community, and it hadn't been soiled by modernity yet. But there was just this, I don't know, there's something about World War I, and there's so much.
But that was kind of the apex of the Industrial Revolution, which brought on all these divisions. So.
Every single issue that we're in the middle of the crash of everything that was developed in that time period. And everything that kind of, they perfected so many things from the Industrial Revolution at that peak and said, this is the real way to do things. And then you had the faults and starts with Nazi Germany and fascism rise as a result of that period. And then the Cold War as a result of that period. And so much of that is ending now, and to really understand where we're going in the future, you have to understand what is going away now and what we are giving up and what is what is passing away because of the internet age, and I just find that period to be really fascinating. I'm in the middle of a book right now called The Day the Bubble Burst, about the day that the stock market crashed and like the massive wealth that was lost on that day and that people had in that period, and it's really a really interesting book. So I think that's my favorite period.
I think we were talking about how we don't think that, we're going to have a civil war because people have to really lose their livelihood before they have a civil war.
Yeah.
Well, they did lose their livelihood in the stock market crash originally. And so I don't know what's going to happen where people are going to legit lose their minds and we're going to have a civil war. I don't know, but I think it's coming within the next 30 to 50 years. Obviously, we're going down that path.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I agree.
Yeah. So, get your shorts ready.
Next up.
What part do you take part in? Is it your past, your present, or your history?
But
I think we just had that question.
Let's sort of focus it like when you're operating in your daily life, do you tend to like, are you a forward-thinking person? Are you a past-thinking person? Like, do you dwell on things, or are you just like, I'm a live-in-the-moment gal?
I'm a forward-thinking person because I feel like I'm a different person than I was growing up or than I was in my 20s. And so I feel like I've evolved. So I try to live in the future because although I've learned from my past, I'm not the same person. So I don't identify with her as much as I do with who I am now.
I would say that I am career-wise definitely professionally focused. Like and I've always been that way. I'm always thinking 5 years ahead. Where am I going to be? What do I need to do now? How do I need to prepare? What can I do? But in my personal life, I'm very backward looking. Like, I am trying to achieve a moment in my head when I was like 10 years old and it's Christmas and there's a fireplace going and my mom is like stroking my head and it was the most content moment of my life. And like everything in my personal life is trying to get back to that moment.
I will never be there again. I know that. So, I'm hoping for better things in the future.
Nothing better than your mom stroking my head.
Yeah. If you knew my mother. All right. Do we have
biblically?
Do we have more questions?
Yep.
So I have something to say. When we stop looking at people to save us and we start looking at ourselves, that's when America will get better. When men start taking responsibility for their families, that's when America will start looking better. When men start helping their neighbors, that's when America will get better. When we come together, not divided. These governments want to watch us be divided.
You know what, Thomas 007, I could not agree more with you. I think it's up to the individual, and that's always the salvation of a state or a society. I think men have really been, I think we talked about this today in the group chat, men have really been kind of cast aside, and they don't have role models, and they're not looked at as,
Are you saying Aubrey Huff isn't a role model?
I'm saying yes. Men should be respected a little more than they are, and that's not some type of patriarchal whatever bullcrap. Because,
why do you say that? That's very controversial. Why do you say that?
Because I feel like for some reason. Because we did live in a patriarchal society, and women did rightfully want to, be looked at as individuals and have their rights be acknowledged. But what happened in that was that men were somehow made lower and made not to be able to speak. And I think that I never want to be a better woman because I made a man lower than me. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. And I think that society is kind of like, it's like one or the other. So
here's what I would say about it. And I made this point in chat today. Because of paternalism, essentially, because of patriarchy, you're really expected as a man to put your lady over, to like really compliment her, make her feel special, like, and I don't think,
which is a good thing,
which is a great thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. But damn it, Tricia, I want to be told I'm cute too.
Yeah,
just every once in a while, just tell me I'm, like those little tokens of appreciation. I'm with somebody now who does that so well and is so great. Like, I know she appreciates me, and I've just been in a lot of relationships where that kind of neglect takes place. And I'll tell you, just being with a woman who appreciates me the same amount, if not more than I appreciate her, and we do stuff for each other, and like, it's just really nice to have that kind of reciprocal thing, as opposed to, well, you're just supposed to pamper me. It's like, well, this is just not going to work.
It goes
like,
back to like what men and women really are, which is, people can get angry about that because you're putting men and women into like, the biological differences and blah, blah, blah. But women want to be adored and loved, and men want to be respected. And that's just biological. Yeah. I don't know. It's just, and so if you can kind of do that for your partner, and I get that, like I really try to tell my husband how much I appreciate the fact that he takes care of us. He really does.
Yeah.
And we've had to go to more traditional roles because, oops, we had a baby. And so I think it would be really shitty of me not to acknowledge the fact that he does that. And that, that doesn't mean that I'm weak or that he should, and he doesn't look at me any less than I am. It's just what we do. And I think we've gone so far away from appreciating men because of the fact that women were kind of looked at as less than, that, we've kind of like turned the tables, and now like men are kind of crapped on in society. And what happened, we crapped on men for so long, and now they're becoming little bitches, MAGA bitches.
Honestly, like this whole truck rant thing, and like Aubrey Huff, like I mentioned him, I don't know if you know who that is, but like he's just like,
I do, yeah,
he's like this baseball player, I think, and like he's just, I'm so manly, and I'm just gonna be the most offensive shit posting man I can, and if you don't like it, then you have low T, and here's my truck nuts, and you're just like,
I hate
what
that.
a fucking pussy. Like, people don't realize how they come across, and like I got to some guy today, like I'm on a comment thread, I wasn't even talking to him, and it was on a local radio talk show host page, so he's in my DMs, and he's just like, you think you're a funny guy, don't you? I bet you're not as funny when you're in person. Like, you know how many times a week some asshole tells me that? Like, I'm not going to fight you. I'm never going to meet you.
Oh,
I will not. I don't even know the guy's
tell you,
name.
Chris is actually funny. Chris is actually pretty funny, guys.
Thank you. I am hilarious. I am pound for pound the funniest libertarian podcaster out there.
Well, no, I get the same thing from like men, like being angry at females online. Like, try to tell me off. Oh, you're ugly. You're super. You're this. And I'm like, yeah, I'm none of those things. So, okay, but thanks.
Right.
People say ridiculous things online. Ridiculous. People like come to my face and say it. Like, really?
Yeah, come to her face.
Yeah. Oh, don't even, Christopher.
Hey, you said it. All right, next.
I did.
Next comment.
Next question. Okay, that was a good question.
Listen, I will never understand what were they trying to accomplish by storming the palace. I will never understand. I mean, I watch a couple of videos. I mean, they just have to accept that Donald Trump is never going to be the president. It's over. You know what I'm saying? Like, these dumbass Americans think that they're going to accomplish anything. Like, oh, yeah, you know what? Let's vote again. Like, no, voting only goes once and that's it. It's as simple as that, except that Donald Trump is not going to be a president. These idiots are storming the motherfucking palace thinking that the Congress are going to change their mind. Like, no, that's not going to happen. It's over. Just let it go, motherfucker. Just watch the Frozen movie. You know the Frozen movie? Let it go. Let it go.
I got to say.
Number one.
Go ahead.
Is he South African? Because his accent I can't pinpoint, and that kills me.
I am guessing he is British, and he is...
No, it's...
Could be
not a British accent.
Could be no, but it sounds like a Caribbean British to me.
So like Haitian? No.
No. Like
no, that
like
was South
parents.
African.
Well, you're gonna have to comment, dude, because
South
you have
African is like Australian and English mixed together.
Yeah, but it's a little more like he's not as high.
Wait, do that again, Chris.
It's not as high. So that little like it's not Australian, but it's a tinge. No, he has like his parents were from like Jamaica and they live in Britain now, and he lives in the West End. Like he's in Love Actually. I know that character. He's
Oh no, that's great. That's a great flick.
I love your accent, but listen, British or South African guy, fuck off. This is America. Don't you tell us how to run our country. I'll come over there.
Yeah, that's right. And we don't have palaces because we don't have a monarchy.
This is a fucking America, okay?
Quiznos has something to say about it.
Yeah. Good old Quiznos. So, yeah, I mean, listen, international listeners, we don't get it either. So here's what's happening in America, and you back me up, Trish, on this.
Okay.
I guess, like, so with things siloing and, you know, there being all these, like, you have to realize America's the third largest country. So, like, when everybody's like, we need healthcare like Luxembourg, it's like, we're not able to do it.
4,000 of us to every one of them. Yeah.
Right. Like, there's 330 million people. Like, it's an enormous country. Like, to drive from end to end in Britain, from Scotland to you know, Guernsey or wherever.
It's horrible, Chris. That wasn't even close. That wasn't even a thing.
You know, like it's the time it takes to drive from Indiana to Atlanta. Like it's an enormous country, and it's hard for people to grasp that. And so there's just an enormous amount of people and opinions, and it's a very independent country, and people have just kind of stopped talking to each other because of the bipartisanship and the two-party system, and I really just don't think you can, unless you're living in one of these countries, it's hard to explain the effect of propaganda on people. You know, the people that are like your mother or your dad or your coworkers, you're just like, who have you become? And it's because they have just given up shame. Like Donald Trump, they have adopted the characteristics of their leader. Like there's a complete lack of shame in his followers. There is a complete, like, there's this confrontation of, I want to see you cry, like, F you. There's also like a complete lack of ability to be self-critical and to say, like, I'm going to criticize Donald Trump for this. Like, you cannot, under any circumstances, get a Trump supporter to criticize Donald Trump. It just, and if they are in the camp, like, it's really inexplicable, other than to say these people are so cultish now that, and like, I'm talking about, like, the people that were at the Capitol. I'm not talking about the 47 million that voted for him, because we have to make that distinction.
They'll twist anything he says into what they want it to be. So, he meant this or he meant that. They project. They just project what they want.
Well, he tweeted he wanted them to be peaceful, but, like, listen to Don Jr.'s speech, and he's like, we're going to come to their backyard. We're going to fight them. So it's there's nothing we can say other than the hardcore cultists, the people that are rushing the Capitol. There's two groups that were there. There was the family people, the fun. They're there for the camaraderie. Like, America has no community. It's very spread out. Like, if you grew up in the suburbs, you don't come out of your house, you don't talk to your neighbors. Like, people are very lonely here. And these political movements give people community. And they want to be good members of standing in the community, and the community and the rules of the community are set by a narcissistic nut job. And, you know, but, like, more people just voted for tax cuts than anything, right? So not everybody's crazy. They just sort of don't see the worst parts. I see the worst parts because I follow it so closely. But, like, the storming of the Capitol was when so many people in America went, wait a minute, this is like everything that my liberal friend has been saying about this guy. What the heck? And even people there, I mean, people there were not anti-storming the Capitol. I mean, I thought that couldn't be possibly be the case. People would be horrified. I was just trying to give people the benefit of the doubt, and JD said, no. You remember the Passion of the Christ where they're letting Barabbas out and the whole crowd's like, give us Barabbas. He's like, that's what it was like. These people are just... And the people that were there leading the charge were white supremacists. They were Nazis. They were literal neo-Nazis handing out literature. They're with weapons, you know. So that is such a small percentage of this country. And the media focuses so much on those uglier elements because we're all outraged by it. And they're personally victims of this group that they're pissed at them. And you have to understand, like, the 10% of the country that you see all the time in the news is not all of America. But there is a pretty damn big percentage of this country that will do everything they possibly can to excuse those people because of coalitional instinct. And that makes them complicit in it. And that is a huge problem. That's another big problem, is just that people excuse the worst parts.
Well, I'm thinking about that a lot, and I want to say things about people we know, but I'm not going to.
Say it. Just, you know, you don't have to invoke names. Like, we're on the Wall Network abiding by Reagan's 11th commandment and not talking ill of other libertarians. But you can mention conservatives. They're fair game.
Okay, well, they're projecting things onto these people and giving them some sort of, like, noble existence that they don't have. Oh, these people are just frustrated at the system. Oh, this and that. No, they literally flew a flag with a man's name on it and invoked it because they wanted him to be their master. There's nothing intelligent about it.
If they're frustrated with the system, it's because they're believing things that are just categorically not true.
Like, I'm frustrated with the system because I know it's garbage. I'm not going to go take a man's flag, some authoritarian leader, and fly it on the Capitol and go try to kill people or break windows or do whatever. Like, that's not what they were there to do. Don't assign them some sort of, like, dignity. And it's stupid. I'm really sick of libertarians siding with it or thinking, well, we can take over this revolution. No, this isn't a revolution. It's a bunch of idiots doing something that some authoritarian told them to do.
If you want to take it over, you need to be more violent than those people. Like, how do libertarians like, the foundation of libertarianism is that we don't use violence to achieve social and political goals. If you think that you are going to take over the MAGA movement or influence it to be libertarian, you're mistaken, because it's all about violence. Like, you cannot out-violence them. They're going to eat you alive.
Well, they believe in forcing their will on people through violence. Right. And that's anti-libertarian. Like, if I want people to agree with me, I need to give them better ideas. And that's that whole, like, I'm not going to go storm the Capitol. I'm not going to go put a gun to somebody's head. I'm going to make a business, or I'm going to, like, you know, use Bitcoin. Like, these are the things that anarchists and libertarians should do. We shouldn't involve ourselves with the status. There's no winning. You're not going to win them over. You know, I don't understand trying to co-opt that movement. It doesn't make any sense. And it seems like it would destroy the libertarian movement and destroy our credibility. And that's what it's doing.
And you can't discount the racism. I mean, they're just libertarianism and racism do not. I mean,
we're not allowed to say that, Chris. We're blue-pilled if we say that. This whole fucking
it's
blue-pilled
true.
thing. Let me tell you a goddamn thing about this stupid blue-pilled thing. Shut the fuck up. You're blue-pilled. This is dumb. You might as well use Snowflake or Karen. Stop saying people are blue-pilled or red-pilled. You're nothing. You're supporting MAGA people. Whatever. You're okay, libertarians.
Said like a true blue pillar.
Cute. I'm done with it. It's stupid. No, you can't say that. I'm sorry. You're blue-pilled because you're supporting a bunch of MAGA idiots. I'm an anarchist. I'm sorry, I don't support status. So
no, but this is the
Thanks.
psychology of it. If you're grouping people into segments and then pitting them against each other, you're collectivizing people. And that is why racism and libertarianism cannot coexist, because it's all about the dignity of the individual. The individual, every life has value. Every person has value. And every system needs to be built to allow those people to self-actualize, regardless of race, color, creed, religion. That's what classical liberalism and the heart of individualism and the rule of law is about. It's about taking violence off of the table and allowing everyone the dignity to live their life as they see fit.
And throwing out like, well, I guess you're blue pilled. You know what? All you're doing is trying to throw somebody in a camp and collectivize them.
Right.
You know, and maybe listen to them. Maybe you could learn something. It's not us versus them. You're going to take a fraction of the population and reduce it even smaller.
Right.
That's so stupid. There's like 4 libertarians. Were you going to be 1 against 3?
Right.
That's dumb.
Wow.
There's very few of us.
All right. Next question.
Do we even have a future, being that we have this coronavirus thing going on?
Tricia?
There's always a future. Yes. Like I said, I'm an optimist, and the future is always bright.
Let's go back.
What you make it.
Let's go back to 1918. Let's go back to my favorite period of history, right?
Lord Jesus, Christopher. Why are we going to 1918?
Because it's a horrible, horrible year in human history. It's awful. People in Indiana are wiping their butts in the dark in an outhouse with corn cobs because toilet paper is not invented. There is no indoor plumbing in Indiana in 100 years ago. You have the flu, this flu that is worse than coronavirus, that is killing the world. It lit on fire all at once in the middle of World War I. Oh, I'm going, baby. In World War I, if you go listen to Dan Carlin's history of the World War I, it is the most gruesome, awful, atrocious war in human history. I know World War II was bigger.
It is, actually.
But it's much worse.
Nasty. Yeah.
You have racism and Jim Crow that is just unimaginably oppressive. You have small town life where people have very little going on, and they have community, but they have very few possessions. They have nowhere near the wealth. They barely have penicillin. There is polio running around. There is no vaccinations to help you. There is no Merck and Pfizer out there creating. I mean, there's like a lab with like 4 tubes fighting the pandemic. Read this book by John Barry about the 1918 flu. They're like, I don't know, is lighter fluid going to do it? Like, they have no idea what's going on. And we have just invented a new technology that will change vaccinations forever in like 4 months. That I mean, we live in the greatest time in human history. You right now have more access to food, healthcare, and better shelter and warmth than King Henry VIII ever did. You, the poorest person listening to this broadcast.
Mm-hmm. The bottom of America lives like the 1% in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Since 1990, global poverty has been cut in half. You have like the media, politicians, these groups, what they love to tell you is that it's all coming to the end, and those guys are doing it, and I can save you. And the truth is that's not going to happen. There is no end of the world. There may be a civil war, but there is a future on the other side of that. Human beings are extremely efficient creatures who are constantly going after the motivating factor is scarcity in the human brain. I don't have enough. I need to produce more. I need to, and when people produce more, you know what they go? There's a problem to be solved. I'm going to make money and resources for myself. I'm going to help other people. I'm solving this problem to help other people. Like, in some respects, we live in one of the most free and empathetic societies that has ever existed in the earth. It's
unless
true.
Unless you're a victim. Unless you live in Yemen.
Right. Yes.
Because there's over 1 million people that are uselessly and needlessly starving to death on the other side of the globe because of American foreign policy.
Yes.
So, a child shits themselves to death in the 21st century. There's a problem with that, and we need to look at that. So I would say that's a huge passion of mine, and I can't stand the fact that nobody gives a shit about that.
Yeah, we have our society is so wealthy. We have a nonprofit sector that helps deal with those tragedies that, like there's There's many things to be hopeful about. There's the awakening over George Floyd that happened over the summer.
Yes.
There is just so many good things happening in the world.
I wish we could have an awakening about what's happening in the Middle East. I really wish we could, because like we're going to get close to we're way past Holocaust numbers. We're going to get close to 1 billion people that are starving and in like hunger, in food crisis, like 1 billion in food crisis.
Crazy.
That's not okay. Yeah. And I don't know. Anyways, I went off and I diverged.
So, like, fuck your Parler and fuck your Spotify, and I can't get Trump on my Twitter. Like, who gives a shit? Your government is killing people. Where are our priorities? Yeah. It doesn't matter that some...
I'm like, get mad. Don't get mad that Trump's not getting reelected. Get mad that kids are pooping to death because they can't get clean water. Get mad about that. Get mad at your government for stealing your money about that. They're stealing your money and killing children. Get fucking mad about that.
Yeah.
Don't care. Who cares about Trump? He'll be fine. He'll be okay without you.
Oh my God. Somebody said amen and a women, and the language is changing. We're all going to be overwhelmed.
Oh my God, a lady with purple hair said something mean, and I'm not a guy anymore. Whatever. Who cares?
Who cares? It's so trivial and stupid.
Cops are murdering people in the street. Be mad about that. Be mad about that.
All right. Next question.
Hello, okay. I have a question. I was watching something on TV one day.
Well, let's see if the next one is right.
You know what? I don't think anything's going to be the same again with this coronavirus going on. I really don't think anything's going to change.
And she's got one more comment here.
Okay.
Well, the coronavirus got really bad because Donald Trump. If he would have did something in the first place, the corona would have never got this bad. So now we're all suffering. We got to stay in the house, wear masks and stuff like that because of Donald Trump.
I disagree with that. I mean, I definitely think you could have handled it better in the beginning, and we probably would have had a better grasp on it if he actually would have acknowledged it. But I don't think a lot of the government actions have helped.
I mean, the failure on testing and centralizing testing earlier is the biggest failure, because she's exactly right, and that's where her point is totally right.
And I diverge a little bit on this.
It's okay that you're wrong, but basically what happened is the CDC and the FDA said, well, we don't want the German vaccine. We're making our own vaccine. We're going to centralize it, and so for a month they just kind of twiddled their thumbs until they finally opened it all up, when everybody realized this was a real problem. And ever since then, because he got so much pressure, like Operation Warp Speed and buying all these vaccines, like that sped up that process immensely. And so that would have been a win for him if he had actually rested on those laurels instead of all the stolen election stuff. That would have been his legacy. It would have been, he did an okay job on the vaccine and we got tax cuts. Cool. And then now there was an insurrection at the Capitol.
I honestly think, though, looking at it objectively, any politicians would have failed in this. And it probably would have been close to the same result, regardless of what side of the aisle they were on, to be honest. It's because it's not a government issue.
Here's the deal with coronavirus. I don't know if
it's a health and human issue.
Yeah.
and it's a virus, and these things happen.
Right.
This is called life on the planet Earth. I don't know.
I mean,
it's very real. It's very real. It's just, I don't know.
It's hard. You can't blame a politician for it. You can blame them for lockdowns, but you can't blame them for. I don't blame Trump for the virus, but to me, they were irrelevant. They just should have gotten out of the way. Let all the people make
I
the
would
vaccines,
agree.
all that. Just get out of the way.
And people would have trusted things more if the politicians weren't involved with them.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
But the coronavirus will go away. It is going to end. It is not all hopeless. I mean, by the end of the year, I would bet that we are just living mostly normal.
Well, no, I believe if Donald Trump would have told people about it and found a cure for it, it wouldn't have got this bad if he would have only let people know that the coronavirus was going around. So I definitely believe it is his fault because he knew about it and he didn't tell nobody. And now we had it and it got badder. And now we don't even know if it's ever going to go away or if there is going to be a cure for it.
Donald Trump's not bright enough to find a cure for a coronavirus. So.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm not worried
that's high
about
acknowledged.
that.
Yeah, I mean, there's no politician that could have solved this. I mean, it really was collaborative effort by global medical professionals, like working together to try and find that cure. The German vaccine with the test tube makers from China, all that stuff. So I do agree that he should have been on the ball and messaging it sooner. But listen, I mean, you elect Donald Trump, you get Donald Trump. I mean, that's not him. He's not on the ball. He doesn't read his briefings. Like, he's not curious. He's, I mean, that was there's some vindication of Hillary Clinton when and her ads, her whole campaign was basically, when the phone rings at 4 a.m., do you want Donald Trump answering the phone? And we didn't at all.
Yeah.
So he really, really messed it up. And I think that's the thing. Like, when, Trump could have sailed to re-election, but when he faced his first real test as president, and it's a test that no president really would have done well at, he just folded, And then you get to, like, the COVID moment where he's got COVID and he's not, aggressively not wearing masks, and it's just like the whole country in America, most of the country just went, all right, I'm done with him, and I'm done with the people that think like him. Here's a loss. And, if you've ever broken up with a narcissist, this is not over yet. So yeah. All right. Thanks so much. I mean, Tricia, it's a great conversation. Always good talking to you.
Yes, good. Absolutely. Chris, where can we find you on social media?
Go to chris-spangle.com, and you can also listen to the Chris Spangle Show. Please go check it all out at wearelibertarians.com. What about you, Tricia?
You can find me anywhere you find Gingerarchy or Tricia Stewart. I'm on most major social media platforms, so just put in Gingerarchy and you'll find me.
Hey, and please subscribe to us both. We'd love to have you. We're going to definitely do this again, and hopefully on a regular basis, and get into a habit, because it's been so much fun.
Yes. All right.
I'll talk to you later.
Peace and love on December 40th.